Hello, my name is Yosef, and today we're going to look at Module E, and we're going to read for understanding. Let's take a look. This is Module E for 4 and 5 pointers. Ask yourself, can you use discourse and transition markers to support reading comprehension? You might not even understand that sentence. It's pretty high, but while we go through today's lesson, we're going to learn to understand and recognize the discourse markers and the transition markers. We're going to look at identifying proper names and understanding the present perfect descriptions of experience up to now. And those 3 details will roll into understanding discourse and transition markers to support reading comprehension. How we're going to do that is we're going to start with an overview of Module E. We're going to look at a few examples of when not to use your dictionary, some useful words, and we're going to follow the grammar clues in order to find the answers. Let's get started. Module E is comprised of an unseen text. It's a 1-page report, and that'll be the focus of today's lesson. There are unseen questions, a variety of question types that they can ask to check that you've understood what was in the text. There's a listening broadcast, which is kind of an unheard text that starts after 20 minutes, and questions that match that listening broadcast. And you're going to want to read those questions before they broadcast, before you listen, so that you know what to listen for. But again, we're not going to focus on that in today's lesson. There are other lessons focusing on listening comprehension. Today we're going to look at reading. So, have you seen a QR code before? If you have, or even if you haven't, take your phone, open up your QR reader or your camera, and focus on this square. If it works, you should see the words "thank you" pop up. And if they do, then you're ready. Because in this QR square, you're going to scan it and get a PDF file of this Module E Bagrut test. It's an unseen from the winter of 2014. And as we go through it, we're going to look at when to and when not to use the dictionary. We're going to look at the connectors, and we're going to look very detailed at the present perfect. So you'll want to download that so you can follow along. When we read an unseen, we start with the title, Trouble at the Top of the World. What do you notice about the title? Are there any words you don't know? Did you notice that all the words here are in capital letters? So in a title, it's hard to know if the words are names or words, and so we don't want to run to the dictionary in the title. We want to read the first question and read the first paragraph before we look up words we don't know from the title. I'll give them to you here just in case, but when you're sitting for your Bagrut, you can leave uncertainty from the title to look at a little bit later. What I do want you to do when you're looking at the title is predict what this unseen could be about. Trouble at the top of the world. Well, I've got the world is round, so where's the top? It could be about the poles. When I look at the whole world, there are mountains which we feel like you're at the top of the world, so it could be about that. It's about something in trouble. Maybe it's about environmental issues. Spend a little bit of time getting your brain warmed up and curious about this topic. That'll help you when you get inside because you'll already be heading in the right direction. Let's look at the first paragraph. On May 29, there's a capital M. May is the name of a month. In 2013, Nepal celebrated a special anniversary. Another capital letter. Another thing I don't want to run to the dictionary for. 60 years earlier, well, that's the beginning of the sentence, 2 climbers, Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay, were the first to reach the top of the country's Mount Everest. Wow, a lot of capital letters there. May is the name of the month. Nepal is the name of a country. 60 is the beginning of the sentence. Edmund, Hillary, and I don't have enough fingers for all of those capital letters. Those are the names of people, and Mount Everest is the name of the mountain. Even if you don't know those facts, you know that those aren't words you needed to look up in the dictionary. Since then, over 4,000 climbers have succeeded in repeating their achievement. Pronoun, their achievement, whose? Edmund, Hillary, and Tenzing Norgay. In fact, more and more people from all over the world have been coming to Nepal, to take on the challenge. In 2012, no fewer than 30 teams were on Everest during the 3-week climbing season. Well, one way to be successful on an unseen is with a little bit of knowledge of the topic. So if you know about Nepal, you're going to have a better idea of what's going on here. Let me tell you a little bit about Nepal. It's located between India and China. It runs through the Himalayan mountains, but also has the beautiful valley of Kathmandu. Nepal is the birthplace of Buddha, and they have in Nepal over 100 ethnic groups which speak over 90 different languages. But you couldn't know that this topic was going to be Nepal or Mount Everest before you got the unseen. So we're not going to spend too much time on background knowledge, but the more you know about the world around you, the more likely it is you'll hit a topic that you know something about. Let's look again at that first paragraph. What do we see here? 60 years earlier. That's a transition. That's one of those discourse markers that tells us what's going on. We had a specific date in 2013, and 60 years earlier, Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay reached the top of the mountain. So we're putting a spot in time and then using that reference to say what happened before. Since then, since before, over 4,000 climbers have succeeded in reaching their achievement, repeating their achievement, In fact, more and more people. More and more than what? More than the 2 who began? More than those 4,000 over 60 years? Yeah, every year more and more. These are all different kinds of markers. In 2012, well, that was a year before the 60-year celebration. These discourse and transition markers help us to know where the story is, when the story takes place, and how one thing relates to another inside the text. Here's another one. Have been coming. More and more people have been coming to Nepal. This is the present perfect progressive. And in order to understand what's going on, we need to understand a little bit more about the present perfect. I come home every day is a sentence in present simple. I've used present simple because it's something that happens on a regular basis. It's a habit. I came here an hour ago. Well, that's a specific detail. Just happened, it began, it ended. It's got no connection to anything else. Many people went to Nepal. That's a past simple fact. Yes, many people went to Nepal. 4,000, in fact, succeeded in climbing Mount Everest. But these are specific facts given in the past simple form to show that they are isolated past facts. Many people will go or will come to Nepal. There's a fact in the future. But if I want to connect those facts, I can use the present perfect to show that something happened in the past, continues into now, and give the impression that it will continue into the future. When we say have been coming, we give the impression that it's something that started, continues now, and will continue into the future. I don't have a crystal ball. I can't predict exactly how many or when they'll come or to where. But the grammar choice in this sentence shows us that the fact that 4,000 people already came and more have come each year implies that they will continue to come into the future. Don't worry if this isn't clear yet. We've got plenty of examples coming. In the second paragraph, Unfortunately, the mountain's popularity has had some undesirable consequences. Has had, again, is the present perfect. Things happened in the past. Consequences are results of past actions. But those past actions create a situation now that we're talking about. So the popularity has had some undesirable consequences. Things happened in the past that influence right now. And I know that influence, that transition marker, is here in the choice of grammar that shows the past action connected to the now. First of all, with so many people arriving every year, the main climbing routes have become heavily polluted. This doesn't say they are heavily polluted today. It doesn't say they were heavily polluted yesterday. It says that starting a long time ago, not even long, it could be a short time ago, we don't know exactly, but sometime in the past, they began to become polluted. They are still polluted now, and we expect, unfortunately, that they will continue to be polluted a little bit into the future. As teams make their way up the mountain, they pass heaps of garbage that were left behind by earlier groups. Here we're specifically saying the earlier groups dropped their garbage and walked away. Specific action in the past. The influence on now is that the heavily pollution, the garbage stays there. So the action of earlier groups leaving the garbage, and although cleanup efforts have improved the situation, the conditions, on the lower part, they have not had much effect higher up. It's hard to go up just to clean. Why would you climb just to clean up someone else's garbage? So we've got past simple things that specific people did at specific times in the past, and the past perfect, the present perfect, things that happened in the past and show us what's going on now in the present. So to understand the present perfect, we use it to show the consequences and effects of the past and future popularity. It's the popularity, it's so many people coming and leaving garbage that creates this negative effect. We also see the consequences and the effects of the past and future cleanup efforts. They have had some success cleaning up the lower parts, but not yet the upper. Maybe we're going to look at cleaning more. I don't know. Let's read on. One activity we can do to practice the present perfect is to think of something that has happened recently, anything which has influenced your present and future. I want you to start thinking about, maybe write 3 sentences describing things that have happened to you and have influenced your life. You can send those sentences to your teacher. All right, in the second paragraph, we have some more discourse markers. Unfortunately is a connector which shows how we feel. Unfortunately, it's too bad that that happened. First of all, if I say first of all, there's going to be a second, maybe a third, right? Coming along. As the team makes their way up the mountain. Although the cleanup efforts, each of these markers shows us something. Unfortunately, shows us the feeling, the attitude toward this. First of all, shows us sequence. As shows things that are happening at the same time. And although shows contrast, things that are different. Each of these is an important type of connector. There are many different connectors of each of these types, and we're going to look more at those as we go along. In the third paragraph, we start with another. There's another connector, one more, connector of addition. Another cause for concern is that many of the climbers have almost no experience as mountaineers because they lack knowledge. That shows a connection between these 2 sentences. They don't have experience, and because they lack the knowledge, they have dangers of climbing. They make bad decisions. about food and equipment and other essential matters. Moreover, this is more of the same. Another, moreover. After paying $30,000 to $120,000 to stand at the top of the world, some of them are unwilling to turn back before reaching the summit. Sometimes they continue to climb even when exhaustion or stormy weather make it unsafe to go on. So let's look at these transition markers. Another shows addition. Because shows the reasons. Moreover shows another addition. Sometimes shows us when. Each of these things shows us the relationship between one sentence and another. They help us follow along to understand what's going on. If we have a question that asks for 2 examples, and we have another and moreover, we know we're in a place where we have multiple examples. If we're asked for why something happened, and we have a connector of reason like because, or as a result, we can show what made other things happen. Here we also have the word have, which you may have recognized from the structure of the present perfect. But in this case, this isn't a present perfect because there isn't another verb. Here, have is the verb itself that means belonging, possession. They have no experience. They don't own it. They don't possess the experience because they haven't done this before. There's the present perfect, using the same word in a different way. It's almost break time, but we're not quite there. What I want you to do is start thinking about your practice time. We looked at examples in the text of how present perfect is used to show the connections between what happened in the past and what's going to happen in the future, and what's happening right now. So I want you to think about, like I said before, think about the things that have happened in your past that have some influence, things that have happened, and work on writing sentences about those. If you want to raise the level of your sentences a little bit, use some of those connectors of cause or connectors of addition to turn your present perfect sentences into a paragraph. This makes your writing much more rich, much more interesting, and helps your readers to know where you're going with things. If I look back at the text, what we have here is the combination of the present perfect showing what happened in the past, the connectors showing we had a celebration of something 60 years ago, we have the popularity which continues into the future, and we have the consequences of that popularity and on what those previous climbers did that influence what the climbers today see and what the cleanup activities will have to be and the challenges that they face into the future. While you're writing your own sentences, let me take off that box so you can see the assignment clearly, and you think about the connection between the activities. You could write sentences, I woke up, and then I got dressed, and then I got in the car, and then there was a traffic jam, and then I arrived late, and then, and then, and then. And you show the sequence that way. But your writing will be more interesting if you make connections. Before I got on the road, I didn't know there would be an accident, so I went through my routine as usual. As usual gives us an anchor into what's going to happen. When I got on the road, I saw that there has been an accident. Wow, it's in the past and it influences. Does it matter if it was 5 minutes ago, 10 minutes ago, or 2 hours ago? No, the traffic jam is still there and it still influences my drive. So I'm showing using the connectors and the perfect tense to show how these things influence what's going on. So, good luck writing during the break. I'll see you in about 10 minutes. Hello, I'm Yosef. Welcome back. We are reading Module E for Understanding. As we started in the first part, we looked at an overview of Module E. We started to talk about when not to use the dictionary. When you encounter capital letters, you can assume that you're looking at a name or a proper noun of some sort, so you don't need the dictionary for that. We got a list of useful words, and we started looking at following the grammar clues with connectors and the present perfect. We're going to continue doing that, and let's look again at the third paragraph. Here we have another cause for concern. We looked at that as a connector in the last slide before we finished our lesson in the first half. Now we're going to look at another thing. We have here in quotation marks, the top of the world. Where does this come from? What are these little marks? These quotation marks, they are another discourse marker, and they show us that someone is speaking. In this case, it isn't someone in particular. In this case, it's a specific expression that they want us to focus on, and they're going to explain it. When you encounter quotation marks, and it isn't someone specific speaking, you'll know that the writers want you to pay specific attention to that phrase, and they're going to explain it. So if you've got something in quotation marks like that, and it isn't he says or she says, then you can bet that they're going to explain it in the text. So again, you won't need to have the dictionary to find out what's here in the quotation marks. So don't use the dictionary when you've got quotation marks like that. But what is this phrase, the top of the world? Where have we seen that before? That's right, it's the title, Trouble at the Top of the World. So where is the top of the world? Well, it says here, after paying $30,000 to $120,000 to stand at the top of the world, they are unwilling to turn back before reaching the summit. The summit is the peak, the top of the world, the top of Mount Everest, which is the highest peak in the world. That's what this says. So trouble at the top of the world, we now understand to mean trouble climbing to the top of Mount Everest. In the fourth paragraph, we see more connectors, several, not just one or two, but many suggestions have recently been made. Recently is another time marker. Recently is in the short past, not 60 years ago when they started, but since they realized there's a problem, they've been trying to, recently, several suggestions have been made that may help improve the situation. They're trying to improve. They started in the past, not a long time ago, but just in the recent past to improve the situation. One, so they're going to give us several, here's one, is to limit the number of climbers who are allowed on the mountain every year. Another, connector of addition, is to require each group of climbers to hire professional guides, a requirement that exists for other mountains around the world. It has also been proposed that people who ask for a permit to climb Everest must provide proof of mountaineering experience. So what are the markers we have here? Several that shows quantity, how many. Recently shows us time. One shows us the sequence. It shows us also the quantity. Another shows addition. Also shows addition. In addition to another, we also have also. Many words give us addition. What were some of the ones we had on the previous paragraph? Moreover showed us that we had more. Here in the fourth paragraph, we also have the present perfect. Several suggestions have been made. Recently, the adverb came into the middle of this verb phrase, have been made. It was the past, And it doesn't matter if it was last week, last month, or last year. It's helping to improve the situation as it is now and into the future. So that present perfect shows us the past actions influencing now and into the future. It has also been proposed. Has been proposed. Well, again, we don't need the specific past time to show what's going to happen. Have they accepted this proposal? Did they say, yes, we want it? No, that's not clear. It's just a suggestion at this point. But it's a suggestion that could have some good influence. And even the suggestion itself has some influence. So notice that these vocabulary words are the ones that I've chosen that will show up in many different unseen's, not just the ones you need here. And proposals, suggestions, are things that come up in many, many unseen's. So you've got proposal as a noun, the thing they're suggesting, and proposed as the verb, I propose something, or in the past, they proposed it. But it can also be an adjective. The proposed suggestion is. So using propose as an adjective to describe the suggestion, as a noun itself, or as a verb doing the action. Each of these words can be used in multiple ways. In the fifth and final paragraph, we have more of these discourse markers. Despite the problems still waiting to be solved, Everest attracts 700 to 900 eager climbers every season. Despite the problems, despite shows us contrast. So there are problems, but even though there are problems, people still want to come. 700 to 900 eager climbers, not just any kind of climbers, but the ones that are excited and want to be there. Eager is an adjective describing the climbers, and it isn't a word that I put here because although you may not know the meaning, in this case you don't need to know the meaning to know what kind of climbers. You know there are lots of them. You can see the popularity. And somebody who's not eager to climb Mount Everest isn't going to make the effort to do it. So it's not a word you needed to look up in the dictionary. Unless the question asks for how did the climbers feel or what kind of climbers were there, you're not going to need to look that word up in the dictionary. But it is a helpful adjective. So it's here. And no wonder, says Ed Simons. No wonder, says Ed Simons. No wonder is a funny little phrase because if we separate the words, there isn't, and wonder, to think about something, it doesn't quite have the meaning of it's obvious that Ed Simons is intending. Who is Ed Simons? He's a person who has led 10 expeditions to the mountain. Here are the quotation marks again. It's an incredible adventure. Who said that? Ed Simons said it's an incredible adventure. Whether you reach the summit or not, it's not simply about getting to the top. It's about appreciating the majesty of nature, challenging yourself, and enjoying the whole experience. So we have more connectors and more quotation marks that help us understand what's going on here. There's another bit of grammar here. We've got who has led. He has led in the past. There are 60 years of history of climbing this mountain, and 10 expeditions have been led by Ed Simons. Were they the past 10 years in a row? Were they one every other year? Did he lead that very first expedition? We don't know, but we know that over the past 60 years, he has led 10 different expeditions. This phrase, who has led 10 expeditions up the mountain, tells us more information about who Ed Simons is and why we should care about what he has to say. He has something to say that's important, and we should listen to him because he's already led 10 expeditions. So we've got more marks that show us what's going on in the text, why this is an important person to listen to, why he might have been interviewed, and what he has to tell us. These details connect to that connector despite the problems. We had 2 paragraphs full of problems. And he's saying, even though there are problems, you should still want to do it. It's still exciting and worthwhile. Let's review the vocabulary that we've learned in this unseen. Achievement is something that you can reach, something you did, something you tried hard and succeeded in doing. The route is the path that they took. In this case, it was the path to reach the top of Mount Everest. Anniversary is the celebration of something that happened every year, or 60 years ago. This is a 60-year anniversary. Birthdays are a type of anniversary that we celebrate every year on the day that we were born. Condition is the situation that we have. The conditions on the mountain, full of garbage. Oy. Adventure, something exciting we can do. Consequence is the result of the past actions. In the next column, we have effect. You want to make something happen, you want to have an effect. You want to effect a change, make it different. To succeed is to actually achieve that goal, to reach that achievement, to try to do something and do it correctly and completely. That's to succeed, relating to the noun success. To celebrate, what we do when we succeed, what we do when we have an achievement, or what we do to remember and honor one of those anniversaries. To challenge, do something that's difficult, try to do something beyond what we know how to do. To improve, make something better. To require, make people have to have something or do something. The highest is the very top, the one that is higher than all the others. Earlier in time is before. More and more shows that there are some, and then more than that, and then more again than that. So more and more shows a growing number. Recently, not too far in the past, popularity is the noun of something that's popular. How much popularity do we have? We see the popularity from how many people go to try and climb this mountain. Experience is what you gain when you do something. Undesirable are things that you don't want. Essential are the things that you have to have. A lack is what you don't have. Concern is to be worried about something. Proposed, we talked about in detail, making suggestions or a suggested something. And incredible is going to be something wonderful. So there's a mix here of words which describe, the adjectives, words that are actions, the verbs, words that are things themselves, the nouns, phrases that give extra meaning, and you can make a Freyer square. Make yourself some card to show you what these words mean. To help yourself to learn these words, you can make a card that has the word itself and a definition and maybe a picture and sample sentences and the translation. And if you use that card, you can fold it in different ways to quiz yourself and help yourself to learn these new words. I want to repeat that the words I've chosen here are not just for this unseen. I didn't put many words that are related to the mountain itself, to Everest, to the climbing process, because not every unseen will be about Mount Everest, or climbing, or Nepal. Each one is going to have a different topic, but they will have some similarities that they may describe achievements or processes, and they'll use these markers more and more to show a growing number. Recently, to show something in the past. Undesirable or incredible, things we don't want, things we do want. Improving, challenging. Facing challenges is an excellent topic for unseens. So learning words about challenges, words about research are all things that we want to be learning and expanding our vocabulary, because one of the #1 factors in success on an unseen is your vocabulary. The less time you spend in the dictionary, the better off you're going to be in understanding what's going on in the text. So let's review some of what we've done today. We talked about discourse and transition markers. What are they? Capital letters are a discourse marker. They indicate proper names, and you don't want to use the dictionary to look them up. Connectors are transition markers and discourse markers that show us different things. They show us the timing, the feeling, the relationships. They show us addition, they show us contrast. The connectors are what show us how one idea is connected to the next idea. And they show us how the writer feels about them, how important they are, if they are additional examples showing the same thing or something showing a difference. Quotation marks are showing us people's words or ideas, very special things that you don't need to use the dictionary for. The quotation marks are going to generally be either someone's opinion or something that's explained in the text, a special phrase that might have meaning in that context. As we go through the transition markers and the discourse markers to understand what's happening in the text, these things help us navigate our way. We can think of them as signposts on the way, on the route that we're following from reading the text to answering the questions, understanding the writer's meaning to getting a picture in our head of what's really happening. When we look at the first paragraph that had a celebration on a particular day and what happened 60 years earlier, and since then what has happened, these things give us an idea of what's the time frame we're talking about. What are the borders of what's going on in the text? And what's important? Undesirable consequences tell us it's important for us to look at the problems that were there. And when we got to the last paragraph, despite the problems, it's still worthwhile. So the structure of the essay, everything is popular, going to Mount Everest is popular, here are some problems that causes, and then at the end, even though there are problems, we should still do it, and it's worthy to be popular and desirable. Those discourse markers help us to understand what was going on through the whole thing. Here's a way you can practice. Take another unseen and highlight all the discourse and transition markers that you've learned about. Find the words that begin with capital letters, highlight those connectors, and even find places where there are quotation marks. This will help you navigate your way through the unseen. Let's review what we learned about the present perfect. It's used to link the past, the present, and the future actions. It can show us the consequences and effects of the past on the present and the future. It can also show us the past actions which are intended to influence the present and future, and show us the past with no specific time mentioned. If it isn't important exactly when it happened, what's important is that it was before now, we're going to use the present perfect. At the beginning, I asked you, can you identify the rhetorical structures such as discourse and transition markers in written text to support comprehension? That's still a mouthful, but I think you might answer now, yes, I can. Yes, I can identify proper names by their capital letters. Yes, I can understand the present perfect and how it's used to show experiences up to now. And I can understand and recognize transition markers, connectors, quotation marks, capital letters, grammar structures, which all help me to understand what's going on in the text. With these skills, yes, you can be successful on your e-Bagrut. I wish you good luck.